great product. I hate it. MDF. What is MDF? Medium density fiberboard. Why do you want furniture that's made out of MDF versus particle board? Yeah, it's about the same, but it's more. It has a finer surface. It's a little bit stronger. It's more stable than particle board. What's the biggest downside of MDF? You can't get it wet. Most of this stuff you don't want to get wet. You get this stuff wet and it just swells up like a sponge. It's quite amazing. The other ugly piece about how many of you, all of you are too young. How many of you have heard of a weather phenomenon called Hurricane Katrina? So here's what happened. Here's the quick, I'll try to tell the story really quick. Here's what happened. Hurricane Katrina obliterated Louisiana, right? They had an immediate and urgent, wildly urgent need for housing. So their solution was the FEMA trailer. How many people have heard of the FEMA trailer? What's a FEMA trailer? So where are most of the camper trailers in the United States manufactured? What? No. Anybody know this? Northeast Indiana. What's the Evans? No, Evansville is not Evansville. Dang it, I can't think of the name of the town right now. Big manufacturing plants up there. I lived in Muncie, Indiana when this happened. And immediately we started seeing trains go through town. Literally 100-car freight trains with 2 campers apiece, all of them identical, headed south. FEMA trailers. They were making camper trailers, cheap, inexpensive camper trailers, and they were sending them to the south for people to live in. Guess what is inside a lot of camper trailers? MDF. What happened? Let's get back up and talk about the production cycle of a piece of MDF and a FEMA trailer. So, MDF manufacturer manufactures sheets of MDF, right? That comes off the production line. It goes and sits in a warehouse for a little bit. It gets put on a truck or a train. It goes to Indiana. Gets manufactured into a camper trailer. Camper trailer goes out, sits on the lot at the manufacturing site for anywhere from 2 days to 2 weeks. Gets delivered. Some dealership decides we want to sell that camper. Camper gets moved from there over to the dealership. Sits on the lot at the dealership for anywhere from 2 days to 3 months. Right? Somebody goes up and says, hey, I want to buy this camper. They buy the camper, they take it home, they sleep in it a couple of nights, they park it in the driveway. It sits there for anywhere from 2 days to 2 months before they sleep in it for a couple of nights again. And that cycle continues. Nobody is spending any real time in that camper. Let's look at the FEMA trailer. They say, hey, we need campers. The MDF manufacturer manufactures MDF, sends it straight to the factory. The factory builds it into a camper. The camper goes straight on the train. The train goes straight to Louisiana. Somebody moves into it. Within two or 3 weeks of the manufacturer manufacturing the MDF, a person is living in this house that is built with. What's this material doing the minute it comes out of the manufacturing plant? This is a trip, right? It's off-gassing. Back in the day, before Katrina, there was a lot of formaldehyde used in the manufacturing of MDF. And it was off-gassing. It was leaching out, evaporating into the air. The way campers were manufactured and people were using them, there wasn't enough exposure to that to cause any problems. People moved into these trailers, Hurricane Katrina victims moved into these trailers and started living in them. Then they lived in them for 2 or 3 years. Guess what started happening? Cancer rates went through the roof because people were living in these trailers that they weren't supposed to be living in. So guess what happened? Guess what the good part about this story is? They've radically changed the manufacturing process for MDF, so it is much safer nowadays. Now, is it the safest thing? I wouldn't want to eat it, but this is a product. Remember when we talked about safety? This is exactly the thing I'm talking about. We hate regulation. We don't want the government in our business. We don't want anybody telling us what we can and can't do. But then we go and do stuff, and people start getting hurt. And so what do we have to do? Make regulation. So that's a good analogy of how that works. Okay. This Curtis Love MDF. It's cheap. Well, it's not impossibly cheap, but it's fairly inexpensive. You can make molding. It's a beautiful surface. It machines really well. I can cut it to shape. It's very stable. It doesn't change dimension unless I get it wet. As long as I keep it dry. This is pre-manufactured stuff, but you can make really good molding out of it. It makes really good paint. It's a really paintable surface. Really amazing stuff. But it will kill you if you look at it. Other schemes. Okay, we're gonna talk about one other piece. I didn't talk about this. I thought it was on the slide. Look, I have two examples of it. What's this? It's plywood.
Right.
But what's so cool about it? If you look at it carefully, you'll notice that the grain is running this direction on this face of it. The grain is running this direction on this face of it, and it's 3 layers of wood. I don't know how well you can see that. The center layer is very thin, and so we can do this with it. What? Notice it cracked a little bit.
Yeah.
It will crack. It will make it. This one's probably more flexible. We call it wiggle wood or curver board. Flexible plywood, and so this stuff is really cool because you can make round columns or curved staircases or things like that. This is where global supply chain comes into play. This stuff is really cool. I don't know where to buy it today. Why don't I know where to get it? Because of supply chain issues. Guess where this stuff is made? Russia. Guess what we can't get from Russia anymore? There you go. So the species of wood that this is made out of grows primarily in Siberia. And so they were just pumping it out, coming straight out and sending it out by the boatload. And then somebody got stupid and a whole bunch of people dead, and we've got a tragedy that's still ongoing. But we also don't get wiggle wood. So
Can we just leave?
how to take a global problem and turn it into my problem. My first real problem. Okay. Other sheet materials. Expanded polystyrene. How many people have seen this stuff before in their life? Hey! Guess why I hate this stuff?
Oh,
Why?
it's expensive.
Because it comes apart, it speeds, you can't get away from this stuff. It's like glitter everywhere. It's expanded polystyrene. It's got these little beads. They put it in a mold, and then they hit it with steam, and all the little beads expand to fill the void, and then they pull it out and cut it into sheets. If you get in the car and drive over to Green. Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
If you go to central Indiana and you start looking for towns that have green in the name of them, you're going to find about 10 of them. So I don't remember which one it is. It's like Indianapolis. Greenfield, Green. I don't know. Anyway.
It was very green.
It's very green, but it's not very green. So anyway, there's a place over there. I've been there. Stinks to high heaven. Oh my goodness, get my head in about 3 seconds. Where they make this stuff, and that they have truckloads of these beads coming in, and they put them in these big hoppers, and they send it down a thing, and they blow it in there, and then they steam it, and it comes out as a bunk. They call it a bunk, and it's just a giant block of foam. It's this stuff, only gigantic, huge, and they break bring it out and they put it on this table, and there's a hot wire. All these sheets are cut out of a block, and they just run a hot wire through it, and it cuts it. And then they can make all kinds of different shapes and everything else like that. The pieces that you find most often, where you're most used to seeing this, I'm sure, is in the box. You open the box and there's a television or a computer or something in there. When they make that, they have a mold that's actually that shape. And they're not cutting that piece that's in that box, they are forming it. There's a mold, they put the beads in there, they steam it, and it comes out that shape. So, most of the, if you go buy insulation board at the store, it's been cut out of a sheet. If you buy, if you're using it for packing, it's formed into that piece. The other application that you see this in is like, I'm trying to think where you would see it. We could go up in Oxford and find it, I'm sure. I saw it in, where I remember it was, they built a new Starbucks in Muncie. And they came in, it was this stuff, it was cut into the shape of the molding on the outside of the building, and they literally glue it on there and then they stuck it over it. So this is a really common building material to be on the exterior of a building to build out those shapes that make it look like stone, but it's actually just styrofoam with stucco on the concrete coating on the outside of it. It's crazy. So I bet if we drive around Oxford and poke enough buildings, we can find buildings that have extruded polystyrene. Very similar chemical makeup, completely different process. We're putting beads in a thing and we're steaming it, making a bunk out of it. This we're squirting into a thing and we're extruding it. It's coming out of a slot basically. You have a big vat of this stuff with a big heater and it's coming through and it's pushing it out and it comes out in sheets. So it's got kind of a skin on it, on both sides of it, and then we cut it to shape. Very similar product, stronger. If I were to grab this piece of material and try and break it, it would break into a very jagged line. This one would be a lot stronger. It's formed in this thickness, and it comes in a variety of thicknesses, as you can see. Great material. It exists as insulation. That's what it's manufactured for. It's manufactured as a building material to build buildings out of and used for insulation. Why do we use it? What do we use it for?
It's a strong, lightweight material.
It's lightweight. It's in a variety of thicknesses. It's very machinable. We can cut it and make shapes out of it. But we can carve it. We can carve both of these. The difference between carving expanded polystyrene bead foam is that it creates a rough texture when we start carving on it. It's harder to get it smooth. You usually have to put some kind of coating over it. The extruded polystyrene we can machine and get a nice smooth surface on it. It's easier to sand, things like that. It's a great choice for lightweight stuff. When I worked at Utah Shakespeare Festival, I didn't bring you pictures of it. We did Richard III. There were columns that were 3 feet in diameter that went from the floor. They were 30 feet, just over 30 feet tall, from the floor of the stage all the way up to the top of the second floor to the roof. And they were made out of this stuff. They were made out of styrofoam. They looked like stone because we had put coatings on them and finished them. But they were very lightweight. And that's why we used it. It was because it was lightweight. We were able to build this column that would have been possibly heavy. I had to build it out of something